Hey everyone! A few videos ago I did a craft hoard video where I made a traveler's journal, but I wasn't really happy with how it turned out. The leather that I had was floppy and the elastic that I had was way too thick. And initially I thought that I wasn't really going to care how it turned out because I was like, I don't really need a new notebook, but I'm going to make it because I have the stuff and people have requested it. But then after I made it, I kind of really liked it. Like, I liked the idea of it. So I decided that I was going to revisit it and make it with better material and the correct kind of elastic. So let's get started. You'll need some leather. I went and got some thicker leather for this redo. The stuff I got was raw, so I also needed leather stain and leather finish. I used chezlin, foam brushes, scissors, an X-Acto knife, a leather hole punch, sandpaper, an edge burnisher, thin elastic, a bead, and notebook inserts. I was making this to replace the first one that I made, so I just used that as a template. The measurements are 5 3/4 inches by 8 1/4 inch, and down the middle, the holes are 1/4 inch on each side, half an inch in from those marks, and then one exactly in the middle. And this size would fit a normal 3.5 by 5.5 inch pocket-sized notebook. Cut this out, rounding the edges. I used some fabric scissors for this, but depending on the thickness of your leather, you might find it easier to use an X-Acto knife or a leather cutting blade. For this version, I opted not to make pockets because the leather was already pretty thick. Use a hole puncher to punch the holes in the middle. I used the same fabric punch that I used in the first video, but I would recommend using one of those hammer hole punches that's actually made for leather working. This thing barely worked and it was kind of a pain. I eventually got it to work, but yeah. You can leave the edges raw, but I wanted to burnish them so it would look nice and finished. The first step to do this is to bevel the edges. You can buy a beveling tool, or you can use a blade to carefully bevel it like I did here. You want to try to be as precise as possible. I didn't get it to be as perfect as you would probably want it to be, so my bevel was a little uneven on some parts, but I didn't mind it so much because it was my first time trying this technique, and it was going to be my journal, so I didn't really care. Then go around and sand the edges. Instead of buying an edge burnisher, I just quickly made one with a piece of dowel that I had. I used a round file and sanded out a notch like so. Of course, you could buy a burnisher, but I was being impatient and I wanted to finish the project as soon as I could, and I figured this makeshift burnisher would work, and it totally did. Some people use this stuff called gum tragacanth to do this. I think I pronounced that right, I don't know, I'm not sure. You apply it on a small section of the edge and rub the burnisher over that spot until it's smooth. I didn't pick this stuff up at the store when I got everything else, and as I mentioned, I wanted it done as soon as possible. So I was pretty excited when I saw online that some people just use their spit to burnish leather edges. It's kind of gross, but this thing is going to be mine, and I have an endless supply of my own saliva, so I figured I would just give it a shot. And wouldn't you know, it worked out great. Since the inside part of the leather is going to be seen whenever you opened it, I thought I'd finish that side by smoothing and staining it. You just need something smooth like a spoon or something. I randomly had a bottle of nail polish within arm's reach, so I used that. The round glass of the bottle actually worked quite well. Rub this in a circular motion to smooth down the rough surface. Then use a foam brush to apply the stain. This side of the leather takes a lot of stain, so some people don't bother with staining it and they only burnish it to finish it, but I like the look of both sides matching. Let that dry and then apply stain to the other side. Once it dried, I chose to add another layer of stain to help even the color out. I only bothered to do this on the outside since that's the side that's going to be seen more often. The inside is a little patchy, but I don't mind it. When the stain is totally dry, finish it off with some finish. I used chezlin. I wasn't really happy with how this turned out. I tried evenly applying it with a foam brush like the instructions said, but it was streaky. I let it dry and tried to add another coat to hopefully even it out, but it didn't really do anything to fix the streaks. I later read that a lot of people preferred the method of dunking their leather pieces into Chezlin to avoid streakiness, but by the time I read that, it was too late for me. I'm hoping that as I use this and it gets that natural wear that leather does, that it'll make the streakiness less apparent. When that's dry, cut a piece of elastic to be as wide as the leather, plus 2 times the spine, plus a little bit extra to make sure that you can tie a knot. Fold it in half and pull it through the middle hole, making sure the loop is on the outside. Pull out just enough elastic to bring it around like so. Thread the ends of the elastic through the next holes, and on the bottom, bring it back through the last hole on that side. Before threading it back through the top, add a bead. I've had these owl beads for forever, waiting for a day to use them, so I was so glad I got to use one for this project. Thread the elastic back through and tie a knot, keeping the elastic a bit taut. Then you can take a notebook and slip it through the elastic like so. To add more notebooks, tie another piece of elastic big enough to fit around a notebook, slip 2 notebooks on it, and then slide one of the notebooks underneath the one that's already in place. This elastic I'm using now is just thin enough to easily slip back through the middle hole, which can be kind of annoying if you're changing the notebook out or if you just have it open. So I found that I could keep it in place by looping it around the bead at the top. This makes me wonder if the whole reason that the bead is there on the original one is for this purpose. I just thought that it was decorative. I didn't really know. I've never used the original Midori's Traveler's Notebook, so I have no idea. But it works for me, so that's how I'm probably going to use it from now on. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It feels strong and it looks nice. Well, besides the streaking. But I think that it will age well. This version doesn't have pockets on the cover, so I'm considering buying a pocket insert that slips under the notebooks, or making one. Who knows? I hope you all enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please leave a like. If you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. I post art videos every Tuesday and DIY videos every Thursday. Thank you to my patrons for helping me produce this video. If you're interested in becoming a patron or just learning about what Patreon is, I'll leave a link to mine up here and you can go check it out. I post weekly video updates and we now have a Discord, so you guys can join and chat with us. You can follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, and Twitch, and I'll leave the information to all of those down below. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next week.